All right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard sued former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton yesterday for defamation, citing damages to the tune of $50 million. The lawsuit was quickly lost in the impeachment fray for the mainstream media, but it underscores an important undercurrent to the Hawaii Congresswoman that I'm sure you all know that I admire by now. By God, she at least knows how to fight. Hillary's spokesperson Nick Merrill's only response to the lawsuit was, quote, "That's ridiculous. I'm obligated to inform you," this is, of course, the same Nick Merrill, who, according to Ronan Farrow, intimated he wouldn't score an interview with Hillary Clinton as long as he was pursuing a story about Harvey Weinstein. But I don't want to digress too far. The lawsuit is almost certain to fail. It's the United States, and probably for good reason. We have a very high standard that you have to reach in order to prove defamation. But it does highlight a sad feature of our politics today. There is no real cost for people like Hillary Clinton, the media, other figures of the establishment for saying absolutely outrageous, untrue things. I mean, just look at your TV today. The very same people, and even in some cases politicians, who got us into the war in Iraq, flubbed the election coverage of 2016, promised us there was a P-tape of Donald Trump, and now promising us that he will be removed from office, are all still there. They make a career out of being completely wrong, trafficking in lies, because those lies benefit a political machine which keeps money flowing to the right people. Now, Hillary faces no real scrutiny or blowback for calling Tulsi Gabbard a Russian asset, saying terrible things about Bernie Sanders, or blaming her electoral loss on Vladimir Putin rather than her own ineptitude, without facing any real scrutiny in the press. Gabbard's lawsuit demands more than $50 million in damages. At first glance, that might seem kind of ridiculous, but is it? Consider that Hillary's accusation against Gabbard was printed largely without any pushback or repeated on every single major network in this country over a 24 to 48 hour period. It was written up in every major publication. That's millions of dollars of precious airtime or ink dedicated to an outright lie. Worse, it spawned disgusting moments like this one.
One thing that was interesting about Tulsi Gabbard's response, I mean, she went after Hillary Clinton. She was strong. She said that she wasn't going to run as a third-party candidate. She never denied being a Russian asset. That was the one aspect that was missing from her response.
Bill and Hillary Clinton, they made their hundreds of millions of dollars by selling a false bill of goods to the American people that they got into politics for public service. And I'm sure that was true sometime in the 1980s. But after that, I think we all know which way things started to trend. In exchange for their millions of dollars, we basically accepted the premise that they would at least act in the general interest of the public and steward it as elder statesmen. It's the same public deal that we've made with past presidents and public figures. But Clinton repaid that public debt with a petty smear against Tulsi Gabbard. But worse, she betrayed the creed that she always pretended to adhere to. She was once privy to the most sensitive information in the United States government, represented us on the world stage. Shouldn't she have some actual evidence before peddling in serious charges like this? What she really revealed is that she never believed in the public service or the public mantle in the first place. That from the beginning, it was all about enriching herself and amassing personal power. So doesn't she owe some of that millions of dollars that she accrued on the back of public service back to the U.S. in some form? And I've been thinking about that, Crystal, which is that it was dismissed as a frivolous lawsuit. It was dismissed as, oh, it's a publicity grab. And maybe all those things are true. But at the actual substance of it, what price do people pay for these outrageous smears? Nothing. And they actually are worth hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of free airtime, in terms of reputational damage, in terms of their ability. I mean, this is the former Secretary of State, First Lady, one of the, Van Jones even said it at the time. He said, this woman's name is going to be in the history books, for many reasons. But despite all that, she can't just come out here and peddling these things. She's still out there tweeting about how the Russian government is going to steal the 2020 election and blames all of her loss. The complete lack of dignity. And like I said, as a public, but this is now turning, we made that decision. We were like, you know what? Because you served, it's okay that you're out there giving, or not okay, but like we're kind of going to look the other way while you give $750,000 speeches to Wall Street or $250,000 things a pop, accepting outrageous fees and amassing all of this personal wealth because it's like, you did your time. But she doesn't believe in that. It's all about a one-way extraction of power and wealth to her. Really, and she doesn't give anything back to us.
Well, and what I appreciate about Tulsi making this stand, which you're right, I mean, the legal threshold is very high. Very hard to succeed in court, especially when you're a public figure, and rightfully so. But I like that she is at least putting a marker down to say, you know what, you can't just go out and casually smear someone, an American veteran, essentially accusing them of being a traitor to their own nation, and think that you're not going to at least get some blowback, right? Think about, we did that segment with Lawrence Lessig, Harvard professor, who had his words completely twisted by the New York Times and was essentially smeared as like an Epstein enabler in the pages of the paper of record so that they could have some sensationalist clickbait headline. And very hard, I mean, very hard to have recourse over that. And this is a person with wealth and prestige and wherewithal to be able to prosecute the case. Think of all the people who don't have that, who just get casually smeared every day, all day, and they can't fight back. That's why I like when people like Tulsi, who have the platform and the ability to prosecute the case, go ahead and try to lay the marker down, because at least it gives some sense of you can't just casually smear someone and think that you're going to get off completely scot-free.
She owes it to every American veteran who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, who also want to pull out of those two countries or want to not have a Cold War with Russia in order to fight back, because their service was also impugned fundamentally by Hillary Clinton. And that's what this is all really about. It's about the media. I mean, look at those, those smug people on MSNBC sitting there being like, well, she didn't deny being a Russian. I mean, that is outrageous.
Yeah. And then it's amazing how it comes full circle.
Right.
Because part of why she's presumed to be a Russian agent is because they assume, beyond all rejections of this concept, that Tulsi's going to run third party. Right. And meanwhile, Hillary Clinton comes out and says, well, I'm not sure if I can support Bernie yet. I mean, it's just total hypocrisy. It's totally absurd.
Don't get set to there's no standards. There's a rule for them, and there's a rule for us.
Right.
And it's like over and over again, we're seeing that become completely unmasked, and seeing this person, like I said, I mean, we let, Harry Truman and Eisenhower and all these other people write books and make money and, Ulysses S. Grant, again, and it was all in exchange for the public. I actually think this is all bad now, because now it's like, this is the system that it enabled, is for a true one-way transaction of power. And so when I look at that, and I'm like, you know what, she owes us something.
Jimmy Carter, whatever you think of him as a president, he didn't do that. He didn't cash in. He maintained a very modest lifestyle. To this day, has maintained an incredibly modest lifestyle. And I don't think there's anything wrong with expecting all of our public figures. I mean, how basic is that? This is supposed to be public service.
Right.
It's not supposed to be about getting rich and famous and flying around the world and being in this jet set 0.01% elite. That's not what this is supposed to be about. I don't think it's too crazy to ask of any of our so-called public servants that they live out the rest of their lives modestly, the way that Jimmy Carter set the example.
By the way, which private island is Obama on right now?
Hanging out with Richard Branson.
I'll give you an update on which billionaire he's hanging out with at this moment.
Next on Rising, friend of the show, Kyle Klinsky, weighs in on the question, will the establishment actually support Bernie Sanders if he is the nominee? His thoughts are next.